Imru.
Back to Mark Twain, who wore a white suit even after Labor Day. He said, "Clothes make the man. Naked people have very little influence, if any, over society." He also said, he died in 1910, he also said that if you don't read newspapers, you are uninformed. And if you read them, you are misinformed. And in that Hal Holbrook presentation, what endured for me, and I haven't had a chance to do this all these years, is use the newspapers as the text. That's what Mark Twain would do. He would take the news of the day, the newspaper of the day, and that would be the beginning of what he would share. So these days, I don't get a newspaper anymore. I had to go to Barnes & Noble to get these today. We read electronically. But I did find it fascinating. So I share these in part to focus on what has been on my mind, which is, what am I going to speak about at High Holidays? Now, I give approximately 100 sermons a year. That's every Friday and Saturday that I'm here, which is almost always. But High Holidays are a whole different kind of teaching. Rather than being a Torah reading as the text is the community and where the community's at. So I've been asking for the last month or longer, congregants, what would you speak about? What do you think the congregation needs to hear about? And I'll mention some of those, but this is this morning's Orange County Register. And the lead story is security increases for high holidays. We're in the news, except not exactly. In this long article, which goes on to page 14 with a big picture, whole page, right? The whole top half of the page. Not one Orange County rabbi is quoted. The rabbis who are quoted are from Riverside, but this is an opportunity to introduce, as many of us already know, Cantor Bob Sorotnick and his wife Barbara, who just celebrated, Linda and I had the privilege to be there, celebrating the completion of 50 years as a cantor. Most of those in Riverside, and this was the synagogue in Riverside and the rabbi in Riverside. The Deepa Baharat is the religion writer for the Register. I've met her. She's Hindu and lives in Riverside. So security is the number one issue. And indeed, for us as a congregation, this could be a topic. Many of you met, if you've come during the week, have met Fernando, our guard, as of the last month, who wears a gun. That's a new phase in the life of Congregation B'nai Israel. Security. But it's not just, of course, our synagogue. Though it's in this last year that Tree of Life Synagogue of Pittsburgh, a synagogue many of us had never heard of before, now know by name, or the Chabad in Poway, 2 mass slayings, the one in Pittsburgh, the largest massacre of Jews in American history in this last year. But this is as much a problem of violence in America. Do you know that in America, a woman is 21 times as likely to be shot than on average in the 87 richest countries of the UN? We are a nation of violence. You can go to a country western concert in Las Vegas. You can go to a Walmart and shop. There is no place that's safe. You can go to a African American church in Charleston or a mosque. It's not just about anti-Semitism. It's about violence in America. And that's not a speech I'm going to give, though I did give that on a Saturday morning. You can find it online. the illness of America in terms of violence and some of the reasons for that. Here, too, is another article. It's the other big article on the front page of the Register, and it's about what do you do with nuclear waste. In some ways, though, it's a bit of a stretch. It's another engagement with how do we use the earth? How do we bury things in the earth? This topic of climate change, we live in a time in which it used to be that if you wanted to avoid politics, you would talk about nature and talk about the outdoors. Today, nature and the outdoors has become a hot political topic. There's almost no topic a rabbi can touch today that is not considered to be political. It's really quite remarkable. If I was to give a speech on what I think is the greatest threat to the planet as an act of love, if I was to give a sermon on what are my duties for my grandchildren, it would be about climate change. And the children who've taken to the streets in the last 2 years, but particularly the last month, are a challenge to all of us. But that's not the sermon I'm going to give. And in part, I'm not going to give it because I actually mentioned I might give it, and it created an uproar among some people that I was going to be political. And I decided, look, I'm not going to convince anybody who doesn't believe in climate change. And those who do believe in it, so that's not why you come to shul, to hear me talk about what you already believe in. So climate change is powerfully important, but that won't be my sermon. Now, I did watch the news programs this morning, and of course, impeachment is a big topic. Our Orange County Register this morning has an article on the last page on impeachment. It's an abbreviated piece from the Associated Press. That's all in this morning's Register. I don't know what that says about us, but... Now, if you want a different kind of the New York Post, a Robert Murdoch paper, impeachment, and how the threat of impeachment has been good for President Trump's coffers in terms of increased donations. That's the big story. Again, depends on what you choose to read. Of course, the LA Times gives it front billing, but I will not be talking about impeachment either. I will not talk about impeachment, although I must admit I am a news junkie. There's a lot that would be fun to talk about, but that's not why we're here, per se. We're here on Rosh Hashanah to talk about ourselves. My teacher, Rabbi Jack Reamer, says, in the audience, I don't have any congressmen or senators. I have voters, moral people pursuing. But what I will look to share throughout Rosh Hashanah is tied to a story of the rabbi named Israel Lipkin Salanter. At least it's attributed to him, though if you actually Google it, it's attributed to others as well. He said as follows, "When I was young, I thought I would change the world. I addressed the big issues, but I wasn't very impactful. So I thought I would change the nation, but I didn't make much of an impact. So I thought I would change just my town. Then I thought maybe I'll just change my family. And then I recognized the only thing I had control over changing was myself. And as the years went by, I understood that indeed, if I had been successful in changing myself more, then I could have changed my family. And my family could have changed my town. And my town could have changed the country. And maybe then our country could have changed the world. The place to begin is with ourselves. That's why, first and foremost, Rosh Hashanah, when we hear the sound of the shofar, it's a call to us to be taken in and to resonate for each of us individually. Another great cantor who was with us for many years, Roger Goodman, used to say, quoting Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, our challenge is to look up the ladder to know we could be more, and to look down to see who's beneath us to help them up. That's our challenge in coming together. And so what I hope to do throughout these next 2 days is speak about character. Character matters. There's one word for character in Yiddish. It's to be a Mensch. Sei a Mensch, a mother says in Yiddish to her child. Be a Mensch. It's a remarkable wisdom in the Jewish tradition. You know, other cultures, and again, I say this only, well, we're in family, have many words for natural phenomenon, different words for different kinds of snow and sleet and hail. Remarkably, we have but one word to be a person of character. That's to be a Mensch. And contained in that one word is a whole array of attributes of integrity, of kindness, of humility, of marking one's words as words of commitment. One word that we really don't have an equivalent of in English. At best, we have the adjective humane, so you take human and add an E. But even humane is not exactly to be a Mensch. A Mensch is a complement of somebody who lives up to an ideal. Mark Twain said, you should live the kind of life that when you die, even the undertaker is sad. Which is to say that to be a Mensch is to live the kind of life that connects to the people around you as a source of love, as a source of integrity, as a source of uplift. Each of us in our lives have been privileged to know people who have touched us. We say of people who are kind, that's a beautiful person. That there's some ways that those each of us have known continue to inspire us. Not necessarily to be them, for sure, not to be anyone but yourself. But when people go out of their way to be good, when people act in ways that their word you can rely on, they touch you to be that kind of trustworthy, that kind of reaching out to be with others. Martin Buber, the great philosopher of Bible and Judaism, said, where is God found? Between two people. When two people are connected to each other and are not using each other, but simply present in that moment of being connected without an ulterior motive, their God is real. And so more than any sermon this year, what I'm promoting is to be a Mensch. It says in Micah, the prophet, Higid lecha Adam, I will tell you person, human, earthling, ma tov, what is good, uma Adonai doresh mimcha, and what God seeks from you. 3 things. Ki imasot mishpat, to do justly. V'ahavat chesed, to love kindness. V'hatzneah lechet im Elohecha, and to walk humbly with your God. Just, kind, humble. This is intended to create 5 conversations. I worked really hard on it. And I had great editors, lots of people in the congregation, and fellow rabbis I admire who read it and allowed me. In the words of Louis D. Brandeis, the great justice, there's no good writing, only good rewriting. This has been rewritten several times. In order to get it, the price is right. You have to make a commitment to have 5 conversations during the next 5 months with just one other person or a group of people. It might be that Friday night meal you have as a family once a month. And most of the conversations focus in on who are your mitzvah heroes, who are your models of being just, kind, walking humbly with God. I have about 10 or 12 of my heroes described, and of course there are many more. There are many more who are in this room who I don't write about. So to get this, tomorrow they'll be available or after services. You simply have to say, we agree to host. And then I give you as many books as you want, thanks to Barbara and Joe Boehm who underwrote this, so that you can have these 5 conversations. The closing story of Rabbi Israel Salanter. It is said that this time of year at Slichot, which we held just a week ago on Saturday, he was going to synagogue when he noticed that his shoes were torn. He couldn't walk comfortably in them, and even though it was night, it was late at night, he thought in his small town, maybe he can find a cobbler, maybe he can find somebody to fix his shoes. And as he walked, he saw a light. And sure enough, it was the shop of a cobbler. And he walked in and he said, as he saw this man hunched over a candle, he said, "Do you think you might fix my shoes? Is it not too late?" And he said, "It's never too late as long as the candle is burning." And after his shoe was fixed, he ran to synagogue and he began to preach. As long as the candle is burning, it can still be fixed. It says in Proverbs, Nishmat Adam Ner Adonai. The soul of a person is the candle of God. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, tomorrow we hear the sound of the shofar, calling us to celebrate being together as a community, awakening us to reflect on our lives, to feel the gratitude of all the goodness, of the privilege of living in this time and this place, and living in relationships with our family and in this community. May we feel gratitude, but more, may we be mindful that the reason we have tomorrow is to be better than today. For to be a mensch